Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing my run to reach veteran rank in Season 23 of Pokémon GO Battle League. Now, I achieved this in the Fossil Cup with an extremely unconventional pick, Shadow Alolan Dugtrio. Now, I did not create this team. I got this team from a member of my Discord server and an incredibly cracked battler, Coconut Mald. This is an extremely unbalanced ABA-style team centered around trying to win lead with the Shadow Alolan Dugtrio to set up alignment in the endgame. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and I'm going to be showcasing my 8-2 run to hit veteran rank. Hopping into game number 1, and we pick up a very good lead, Shadow Alolan Dugtrio into Jellicent. If Jellicent no-shields the Mud Bomb, Dugtrio can shield once, and KO with 3 Mud Slaps after, meaning they do not get to another move. If they end up shielding, then as the Dugtrio, I'm just going to play for the 2 shield, because Dugtrio can fully slap down. My opponent is going to be able to force both shields, but with a Steelix Mantine core in the back, as long as I have alignment, I should be in a very good spot. So Dugtrio exits with a ton of energy, out comes Fortress, and Fortress is really not going to appreciate Shadow Mud Bombs. Mud Bomb is going to land. These Volt Switches are double resisted, so they're not doing a whole lot of anything. Mud Bomb number 2 picks up the KO. In the back is Steelix, and by itself, Dugtrio almost took out an entire team. It took out 2 and a third Pokemon just by itself. My opponent's final Pokemon is revealed to be Steelix, and I'm going to bring in my own. I fire off this Crunch, and I do get a little bit lucky here with the 20% chance at a defense drop. My opponent, they do have Earthquake, but realistically, even without the defense drop, I'm still in a very good spot here, as now I'm just going to fire off Psychic Fangs. My opponent is forced to commit the shield. We're going to get the perfect catch of a Psychic Fangs onto Mantine. My opponent wanted to overfarm to the max and not let me get my move, so they were always going to throw 1 before I got my Fangs. Now this preserves my ability to make a Fangs on the Steelix later if I need it, and Mantine is comfortably going to make it to an Aerial Ace even with -2 defense and taking double super effective damage. So Aerial Ace KOs the Steelix, and that's a game 1 win. We get a very bad lead in game number 2, leading into Shadow Poliwrath. The safe switch into the Steelix, and Steelix is now going to be met with a Power-Up Punch. Power-Up Punch is going to land. I'm going to go for the Psychic Fangs here, but my opponent does end up switching out into Ferrothorn, so instead, I'm going to farm up and now look to fire off a Crunch. Crunch is going to land onto the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn farming up a decent amount of energy, and I just decide to take the damage that I can get and go for the Psychic Fangs. This will help me set up a 1-shield farm down with the Dugtrio, and that energy will be very threatening to the Poliwrath. So I bring in the Dugtrio, they're going to fire off the Power Whip. This is a very easy shield and the 1-shield farm down now to exit with energy to get the shield back, but they pivot into Golisopod. I bank a ton of energy and send in Mantine. Mantine is not a Pokemon that I care for in this meta whatsoever. It does exactly one thing well, and that is RPSing Golisopod and completely destroying Golisopod's energy. So in this instance here, it did give me the ability to bank a ton of energy on the Shadow Dugtrio before switching out, because that energy advantage goes nowhere into the Mantine. Mantine, I will end up committing the shield here, as they are going to be firing off the Aqua Jet. They're now going to switch into the Ferrothorn. I switch into the Dugtrio and snipe down with Mud Slaps. And I just have so much energy available on this Dugtrio. Opponent is going to bring in Golisopod. Golisopod gets farmed down, and I have the back-to-back Mud Bombs. This is a very healthy Poliwrath, but Dugtrio's attack stat is absolutely absurd. Oh my goodness, Poliwrath gets rocked. Mud Bomb number 2 picks up the KO, and that is a good game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Alolan Dugtrio into Jellicent. Jellicent is actually going to CMP tie here as I fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is going to be no-shielded, and look at that damage. I can now 1-shield farm down with the Dugtrio, and just like that, switch advantage is 1. My opponent gives up switch, they pivot into Gastrodon, and I respond with Mantine. Now this team is extremely ABA weak to Gastrodon. If you see Gastrodon on the lead, it's probably going to be a loss. You just have to stay in with the Dugtrio, make it to a Mud Bomb, and then just try and play it from there. But the strategy of the team is to try and be very unreadable. If you see a Dugtrio lead, first of all, you're probably going to say to yourself, what is a Dugtrio and what moves does it have? And you're also never going to expect another Steel type in the back, because who would team build like that? Well, the answer is Coconut Mald, and Coconut Mald, at the time of recording this, is up to 2635 ELO with the team, which if leaderboards were out, would very, very likely be rank 1 in the world. So another team builder having great success with ABA. Here I get to send back in my Shadow Alolan Dugtrio and commit the shield. And I'm just going to use Dugtrio as a one-man wrecking ball, trying to get as much damage as I possibly can onto this Ferrothorn. So I will get to fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is going to be shielded up. Opponent is going to switch into Jellicent. Jellicent does actually farm me down, but I can send in the Steelix. Steelix is just way too healthy, and my opponent is going to resign the match. Shadow Alolan Dugtrio into Shadow Scizor in the next match. This is a great lead. My opponent save switches into Golisopod, and again, I don't have to switch out right away. I can farm up 3 Mud Slaps. Now I'm almost to a Mud Bomb for later, and then bring in the Mantine to just completely erase all of this Golisopod energy. Golisopod going to be firing off another Aqua Jet, and it just does not matter to Mantine. Mantine is going to look for a very nice overfarm, firing off this Aerial Ace, and putting pressure on the opponent. They're just going to let the Golisopod go, sending back in Scizor, and Scizor is going to be met with an Aerial Ace bait. I did farm up past the Water Pulse, able to grab a shield from my opponent. Now, I try and make it to the Water Pulse, and it actually forces their hand. They end up having to throw a Night Slash unless they want to double shield. In comes the Dugtrio. Oh, this is really bad. It's Gastrodon in the back. I fire up the Mud Bomb right away. They no-shield the Mud Bomb, anticipating that surely I have a counter to Mud Slap in the back, leading a Steel type, but I don't. So they end up saving their shield, and it's going to cost them, as now I can just take the win with Steelix, as Steelix will get to go for a full Thunderfang down of Gastrodon, exiting with energy and the ability to permanently debuff this Scizor, and there's just no way now for my opponent to win this game. They end up shielding the Psychic Fangs, and I'm always just going to save the shield for the Dugtrio, as Dugtrio with a shield can never lose because they are in 1 Mud Slap range. So I send in the Dugtrio, Mud Slap erases Shadow Scizor, and that's a win. We pick up a great lead in the next match, Shadow Dugtrio into Ferrothorn. They safe switch into Golisopod. Oh no, we get to do the same play, farming up 3 Mud Slaps, sending in the Mantine, and Mantine is just so brutally efficient at getting rid of Golisopod energy. Golisopod going to strike with another Aqua Jet, and it just does not matter. Mantine, no shielding once again, and I will throw right before they get Aqua Jet number 3. If they land a 3rd Aqua Jet, then they do have the ability to double shield and make a play for switch advantage. In this instance here, it is going to end up being a CMP tie. I decide to let it go. If they really want to burn 2 shields for switch, I will let them, because Shadow Alolan Dugtrio energy is going to go pretty far anyway. They end up surrendering shield advantage and switch advantage. I decide to aggressively pivot back into the Dugtrio, trusting in the fact that Dugtrio probably can do okay into their team. The Mud Bomb lands, and that damage is just ridiculous. I shield up the Power Whip, and guess what? I'm getting this full farm down, exiting with so much energy. It's Jellicent in the back, and this game is so over. The Shadow Alolan Dugtrio, I wouldn't even need it to take home the win, but I have 2 Mud Bombs on it, so I'm going to get so much pressure into my opponent here. They're forced to shield. In comes the Steelix, and my opponent, it looked like they thought about top lefting there for a second, but they definitely should have, because there's just no way for them to win this game. Now, I will go for the full Thunderfang farm down. I should live the Surf here on like 1 HP, but I decide may as well be safe. We're on a veteran push. Thunderfang goes through, and that game is a win. We see a familiar lead and a bad lead in the next match, staring down Poliwrath. The last one was Shadow. I save switch into the Steelix. This one doesn't go for a power-up punch though. Instead, they're over-farming, and that does make me worry about Dynamic Punch. I land the Psychic Fangs, which is very nice. Is it dynamic? Is it icy? I shield, and it's an Icy Wind bait. That's a devastatingly bad shield call. And that right there immediately puts me in a position that I probably cannot recover from. And that's just because Shadow Alolan Dugtrio, its winning matchups neutrally are entirely dependent on not being at a shield or energy deficit. If either is the case, then suddenly it's no longer a winning matchup in those scenarios. Here, they're going to get a full Bug Bite down with Fortress. I send in the Dugtrio. I just have to hope that they don't have Earthquake and that it's Sand Tomb, but it's an Earthquake. And this game is just going to be a loss. I bring in the Mantine. I'm going to no shield. Hopefully they show me what their 3rd was so I know if I ever had a chance in this game. And it turns out I never had a chance in the game, as it's Steelix. We now move to the next set, and what a lead. Shadow Alolan Dugtrio into Togedemaru. They stay in to take 2 Mudslaps, and then save switch into Ferrothorn, and that's just because they're core broken by the Dugtrio. Ferrothorn's gonna get absolutely deleted by Dugtrio. It doesn't matter when they shield the move. Even if they double shield, you can just fully slap down. So now I have switch advantage, and it doesn't matter what they send in. I'm always gonna be staying in with the Dugtrio, because I have a second ground type in the back. They send in Jellicent, and at this point, this game is already over. I've won. My opponent just doesn't know it yet. I fire off the Mud Bomb. They will end up committing the shield, and from here, I can just set up the alignment exactly how I need it. I'm going to use Mantine as a damage sponge to absorb the energy from the Jellicent, and I have the second ground type in the back of Steelix, and Steelix will obviously just completely destroy Togedemaru. Togedemaru is a very inflexible Pokemon, so the moment they send in Togedemaru, we just send in Steelix and watch the Togedemaru flail helplessly until it resigns the match. Moving into game number 2, and it's a very bad lead. Shadow Alolan Dugtrio into Golisopod. For Golisopod leads, it's going to be a Steelix safe switch. Opponent is going to answer with a Ferrothorn, but interestingly enough, they didn't chip me before they switched in the Ferrothorn. The Crunch gets a debuff, and with that debuff, suddenly, I have plans to make a play for alignment. Power Whip is going to land. That does do a solid amount of damage. I'm farming up a ton of energy with the Steelix. I do easily have enough for the Crunch here, but I'm baiting with the Psychic Fangs. The Psychic Fangs bait is successful. Opponent over farming too much. They let me get to the Crunch. They know I have the Crunch, so this should be a safe bait for me here, but they call the bait, and now that's actually really unfortunate. I'll still be able to flip switch here, but the bad news for me is that I am going to be down a shield. If I just landed the Crunch, it would have simply KO'd. My opponent just lost track of the energy, but Steelix will get the full farm down. Exiting with energy in the back is Jellicent, and it doesn't matter that they have energy on this Golisopod, because the moment they send in the Golisopod, it's Mantine time. Mantine was a Pokemon of frustration when I was using Golisopod, but for me here, it is honestly being pretty valuable at just shutting down Golisopod energy game after game after game. I'm still not a fan of its presence in the meta, as it's a very RPS Pokemon, but it's serving a purpose on this team, and this purpose is to completely annihilate every Golisopod that I see. Golisopod does end up committing the shield. They go for the Aqua Jet. It's still not going to be enough. In comes Jellicent, and Jellicent will be met with the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is going to land. There's the switch into the Steelix. Steelix is going to make it to the Crunch. The non-Shadow Steelix paying dividends with the extra survivability. Crunch picks up the KO. In comes Golisopod. I can send in Dugtrio, and Dugtrio will get to Mud Slap down the Golisopod and take the win. Good lead in the next match. Shadow Alolan Dugtrio into the Magcargo. Look at the Mud Slaps go. They're going to save switch into Jellicent, and I'm going to stay in here and fire off the Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb is going to be no shielded. That is big damage onto the Jellicent, and now Jellicent will be met with Steelix. Steelix more than happy to no shield, as they will go for the Surf. Surf does do quite a bit of damage. I throw 2 in the move here once I realized that the third Thunder Fang would not KO. So Psychic Fangs will pick up the knockout. My opponent is going to send back in the Magcargo. Magcargo will fire off energy, and here I make a pretty critical error. I forget that I misaligned the timers, so I send in the Dugtrio, trying to snipe it down, and I just get farmed down by Golisopod. That's really not ideal. I send in Mantine. Mantine gets 1 turn bring it as well. So things suddenly tilting not in my favor. I do see a win con though. It's a very messy win con, but if I can double shield and fully farm down, my opponent is completely energy dry on that Magcargo. They fired off an overheat, meaning they are 3 incinerates away from the game-winning Rock Tomb. So as long as I exit with 100 energy here, I should always be able to win the game via triple Aerial Ace. So that's exactly what I go for. I double shield, I go way over 100 energy, because all that matters is that I exit the matchup with 100. And that's going to allow me to 2 in the move, 2 in the move, and 1 final time, 2 and the move. And this Aerial Ace, even though it's resisted, will be enough to KO Magcargo, and we're now 3-0. But I hear boss music in game number 4 as I'm battling the team's creator, Coconut Mold. Dugtrio versus Dugtrio is a simultaneous KO on the lead. We both know each other's teams, so I am going to be sending in the Steelix with the clock hit 0, and Coconut Mold is going to do the same. Now, Steelix in this meta will typically not run Earthquake. I do want to try and bluff that I have Earthquake to see if maybe I can force my opponent into committing the shield, but they're not going to do that. That is a little bit unfortunate. I'm going to be no shielding here as I don't respect the Earthquake either, and the funny thing is we actually both ended up going for the Psychic Fangs. So now our Steelixes are both one stage debuffed. My opponent now goes for the Crunch. Crunch lands, and that does deal some pretty meaningful damage. I'm firing off a Crunch myself. This Crunch is going to be shielded. My Crunch does get the defense drop, so a bit of good luck does go my way. But now things get a little bit awkward because he can just go straight for the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs, obviously not a move I would prefer to shield, but I'm running out of health on the Steelix. I do get big damage here, but there's another Psychic Fangs, and I think that I'm in trouble. I let it go. I can survive it and make a Psychic Fangs of my own, but I have made a critical error in this mirror match. I let a Crunch land, and in doing so now, I'm just gonna get way too much damage taken on the Mantine. I do end up one turn lagging as I bring the Mantine into the Steelix, but realistically, it's not gonna matter, and I will concede the match. So to get the 4-1, we're gonna need to beat our final opponent, and it is a good lead, however, as it's Shadow, Alolan Dugtrio into the Jellicent. I do like throwing the Mud Bomb instantly, as a lot of trainers like to no-shield here, and that can set you up nicely for the one-shield farm down, as Jellicent getting absolutely destroyed by neutral damage. It just never gets old. I'm going to be shielding up the Surf, getting the full farm down. Opponent now sends in Ferrothorn. I'm farming up with the Dugtrio, trying to go for the CMP tie. It looks like my opponent actually got the one turn there, which is unfortunate, but Mud Bomb absolutely rocks them. I'm going for another Mud Bomb, and my opponent is just losing all of their Pokemon. They shield. They're trying for a farm down. It's a simul KO. I'll never know what they had in the back as they do resign the match, and I do get my 4-1 set here, and that gets me to veteran rank 25-14 Elo with an incredibly unconventional team with Shadow, Alolan Dugtrio. Now, while this team did honestly work really well for me and those who have tried it in my server, I don't know if I can in good conscience recommend this team. Obviously, I know the cup goes away in a few hours if you're watching this video right when it comes out, but I do feel like part of what made this team so good was the surprise factor. People not knowing the meta matchups of Shadow, Alolan Dugtrio was a definite benefit, and on top of that, the fact that when people saw the Dugtrio, they had no idea what the backline was, and when you don't know the backline, obviously you can make some misplays. Posting this video the morning when this cup rotates out to me feels right because it was a really cool strategy for the cup while it was here, and I didn't really want to spoil it while the cup was still in rotation. So with me hitting veteran, kind of wanted to hold off until the cup went away, but it's honestly one of the more unique teams that I've ever ranked up with, so to me, I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.